What's up, all you Kevins? We're here at Pitts 2023, and this is what's going down. There is an interview happening with all 5 of the owners of these SAAC cars. Never probably done before because this is so many in one place. I'm super excited about this. We're going to meet all the owners, and we're going to get some information you guys have probably never seen before. So stay tuned, watch the whole video.
Hey, coming here from Pitts, this is Larry Hill. I'm from Asheville, North Carolina. I've got SAAC number 4, MK1.
Hi, Scott Warren, Lake Forest, Illinois. I own SAAC Snake number 2 and SAAC MK2 number 1.
Hi, my name is Dave Eber. I've got SAAC Mark 1 number 001, and I'm from Asheville, North Carolina.
Terry Weidman, I have SAAC MK2 number 17 from Cleveland, Alabama.
So the Shelby American Automobile Club, my dad was one of the original founders. And
What was his name?
Ken Eber. So back in the early 90s, they were all sitting around and wondering if they had a modern day Shelby, what it would look like. Because all the original Shelbys were kind of getting valuable and getting old, and everybody didn't want to drive them. So their idea was to make a modern, a new one that everybody could drive as, an everyday car, whatever. So we got together with Ford, SVO Motorsports, and Carroll Shelby was involved a little bit. He was under contract with Chrysler at the time, but he knew what we were doing and gave us some advice along the way. So over about a 2-year period, we made about 62 of them. The Mark 1s, the white with the blue stripes, were the first ones. They were only available to Shelby Club members. Then we did the Mark 2s, which were available in different colors, hardtops or convertibles. And then the last model we did was a SAAC Snake, which is more of like an entry-level car. It was an automatic transmission was available. I brought Mark 1 001. It's one of 3 factory supercharged Mark 1s, and then we built one factory supercharged SAAC Snake, which is also here. So 3 of the 4 factory supercharged SAAC Mustangs are here today.
Let me start off by my connection to even, pursuing a SAAC car. I was in Charlotte when the SAAC Car Club and Dave introduced the cars back in 1992. And I was there with my Mustang GT doing an open track. And they were there running the cars out on the track. And from that point, as a young man, I thought, wow, would love to catch one of those one day. And so fast forward, many years later, wanted to pursue one of the cars. And so it just happened that Dave had moved to the city I was living in Asheville. And so he helped me, learn a little bit more about the cars, etc. And I didn't mention, but I had bought Mark II number 7, which was owned by the same gentleman that Scott bought his from in California. I thought that was going to be probably the end of my SAAC car pursuit, but I did start pursuing a Mark I that I brought here today, one of the supercharged cars, and I'd say after a year-long pursuit, I was able to strike a deal with the owner. And but this car was actually owned by Dave's dad, so Dave knew a lot about the car, and so it's got a little more miles on it. It's got 24,000 miles, but same thing, factory supercharged, close to 500 horsepower. I bought the car. I've done a little bit of cosmetic restoration, but otherwise it sits the way that I got it. So right now, between myself, Dave, and Dave's brother, we have all of the 3 supercharged Mark I cars in North Carolina, with 2 in Asheville and 1 in Charlotte. So now my number 7, which is a twin to the red and white stripe car that Terry has, it's still going under a little bit of a cosmetic restoration. It's had outside a long time. It only has 1,500 miles, but similar to Scott's story that I'm sure he'll tell, the gentleman let these cars sit outside for a while, so I'm trying to give that one back to its glory, and I'll have it out next time.
Mark ones, I mean, we wanted to make them, I guess, nicer than the original Shelbys, so they all had leather interior. This is actually the only Mark one that had Recaros in it. Kenwood designed a stereo system for these, specifically for these cars.
Really?
So we've got our own wiring harness, all that. So Kenwood did all that for us. It's got a roll bar in it. And then we, other than leather interior, I mean, the center console, redid that. This one's got the police certified speedometer in it. Door panels are different. So really, when we got the cars originally, they were pretty much gutted. The motor came out, rear ends, transmissions, interior, suspension, pretty much gutted them and started over.
What was the inspiration for the interior, stripe package, those kinds of things?
It was, the stripes, if you look at like an original 65 Shelby, it's got the blue and white stripes at the bottom of the car. They're halfway up on these because all the body work. We couldn't put them in the same location as the original Shelbys. We've got the Simmons wheels from Australia. The cars were converted over to 4-lug, 5-lug, 4-wheel disc brakes. The suspension's actually different on the 3 supercharged cars. We have showroom stock racing springs on them and the Coney yellow showroom stock front struts. So that's different than the other production Mark ones. The fog lights came out and we put brake cooling ducts in there. This one's actually, the motor on this one's a little different. It's a SVO, it was an A4 race block. This is the only one that had aluminum heads on it. I think it dynoed back in the day just over 500 horsepower and like 520 foot-pounds of torque.
Wow. I love it. You guys not only have the name plate, but you also have the name on the dash and valve covers.
Yes, correct. There's, they were the same style as the Shelby style from back in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got headers, Borla exhaust, throttle body's different.
Very cool. What a lot of unique touches.
Yeah, we tried. Just trying to think of what else. We got rid of the scoops on the side from the Mustang GTs. It's similar to what the Cobra ended up becoming. 3-piece Simmons wheels from Australia.
I love it. Gorgeous. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for bringing this car.
So this car was in Southern California, parked next to one of Larry's cars that he was just talking about, his red convertible. For me, this is the second part of my story, too. My story originally started with collecting rare Salines and stuff that you wanted when you were younger and had no chance of affording. And I was fortunate enough to get a couple real low bumper number 93 Salines, and 93 is my favorite year. So on eBay one day, a black and gold convertible SAAC comes up, and it was 93 bumper number 1. And I'm like, oh God, here we go. And my wife just rolled her eyes, and she knew what was going down here, that I wasn't going to stop without owning that car. And so I was fortunate enough to get it, and that was many, many years ago. And it was in great shape with 10,000 miles, and it happened to be the last car made. They just saved bumper number 1. So it was really cool, and I didn't know that when I bought it. But at that point, I said, God, it would really neat. I got Saline 1 and 2, and now I've got SAAC number 1, and number 2 happens to be, number 2 Snake happened to be one of the 2 black and gold hatches they ever made, and it was completely optioned out to be like an MK1 or 2, pretty much, with the Recaro interior, the supercharger. They did neat stuff like painting a fire extinguisher. It's got the roll cage, and it's one of 9 with Recaro seats. So any which way, the story goes is that one day I woke up, and on Craigslist in Southern California, there's an ad running for Snake number 2. And I called a buddy of mine there and said, dude, you got to help me out. We got to figure this out, and we got to do it stat. I mean, we got to do this now. And so he called the guy, made contact, was there that day. We basically strung a deal, and we found out that the car had been The owner, I had been chasing this car for a few years, but the guy dropped off the face of the earth. He had no landline. You couldn't find him. And so when this car popped up, we got the rest of the story. It's unfortunately the guy got ill or had some sort of dementia and really just left a few SAAC cars and a 57 T-Bird sitting outside his house in Southern California, and had been there. This one for sure had been there more than 10 years, is the story we're told. And we were able to get it out, and we really wanted to make sure that it wasn't a restored car, but an original car. So really the only thing we did on this car, and when we found it, it had 765 miles. Today it's a little over 800. But so the only thing we did is wet sand buff the car and replace the stickers. So trim, seats, everything is as we found it. And you can even see some corrosion in some places, like on the wheels where they sunk into the mud, that we did not want to change the wheels or restore them. We wanted to leave that to tell the story. So I feel blessed to be able to own both the cars, and really blessed to be here today with 3 of the 4 factory supercharged cars and some friends and people I call friends with a wealth of knowledge on these cars.
Absolutely. Let's check out the interior on this because it's very different than the white and blue ones.
Yes, yes. So this has the Recaro, and it's a little bit different than the MK1, where they actually put a stripe on these, and it's one of 2 cars built with Scroth racing harnesses from the factory. A boost gauge in the A-pillar, roll bar, which was optional on a Snake but standard on Mark 1 and 2 cars. And the car is virtually brand new, even though it sat outside that whole time. It just cleaned up to be almost immaculate.
All right, guys, now one of you people left a signed Celine poster at the 411110. If you're missing your poster, that's where it's at. You left that at 10.
Gorgeous car.
Thank you. Thank you.
Love it.
Blessed to own it.
Thank you so much for telling us about it.
You got it. We'll go to Terry now.
Yeah.
But do I have David Edwards? David
Okay, man.
You have an SF95.
So on our SAAC, we ended up getting it. We ended up getting it because of other people's lack of knowledge of the SAAC car.
Really?
So there was a guy, a friend of ours, lives up in North Alabama, Joseph Scott. His neighbor, she had contacted him because her mom, they had moved from Oregon, wanted to sell her car. They bought it new at Demeraux Ford. She worked there, her husband worked there, and it was gifted to her by her husband as a Valentine's gift. So, according to her, yeah. And according to her, the back seat's never been sat in. All right. So this was probably got, this one, I would say probably has more miles on it than any of the others sitting here. It's got a little over 11,000, so they drove it some. But for about 15 years, it just stayed parked. And so she had said something to her daughter about selling it, and she's like, well, you know, Joseph, he's a Mustang guy in North Alabama, so like he probably knows people. So she approached Joseph about having a Shelby Fox body. Of course, Joseph's like, there's no Shelby Fox body because it's really not known as a Shelby, you know. And so he talked to a couple buddies, and she had told him about it, and they were like, it's just a Fox with some decals on it. Well, a couple months go by. She contacts him again. Joe's like, yeah, I hadn't got anybody any interest in it. And she's like, well, you know, we'd like to get it out of the garage. So he contacts Jay Ronco. Jay's listening to him. He goes, so she's got what? It's a Shelby Fox. And he goes, but there's no such thing as Shelby Fox. So, you know, it's just a Fox body. And Jay goes, what does it look like? And he starts talking. He's like, hey, man, when can I see this car? He goes, I don't know. I mean, I can contact her. He goes, when do you want to see it? And Jay said, I don't know, now. So Jay goes over there with Joseph to see the car. When the garage door opened, Jay's sitting there looking at the SAAC car, and he's like, man, you know what this is? And he goes, well, it's just a Fox body with, you know, some decals. And he goes, no, man. He said, it's a SAAC car. And which Jay starts explaining exactly what it is, because obviously Jay's got one as well. And so the lady is super nice, tells him the story of the car, but she just said that, you know, she just doesn't drive it. The kids didn't want it, and basically told Jay, he said, just make me an offer, and which he did, which Jay knew I was looking for one, and which I didn't care if it was going to be a convertible or a hardtop because it's a SAAC car. And so he tells her, hey, I'll give you this for it. It needed a little paint correction, but she said, well, let me make sure my kids don't want it. And before he got home, she called him and said, come get it. And so he was going to surprise me with it. So we go on this trip to buy a piece of furniture for my garage. And he's like all giddy, and he keeps asking me all these questions about, SAACs and this, that, and the other. And I was like, I got something to tell you. I was like, what? He goes, finally, he's like, since you're not going to ask the questions, he said, man, I found you a SAAC car. And I was like, really? He goes, oh, yeah, you're not going to believe this. He told me the story, and I'm like, man, that is crazy. But we went up there and picked it up at the lady's house, man. It's just super nice. And we've been driving it ever since. I mean, we get it out. We take it out. We actually run it through the mountains when we first got here this weekend. It got in the rain this weekend. Second time it's only ever been in the rain. Super clean up under. I mean, this was her baby. But, yeah, that's how we ended up with the SAAC car. Yeah, I mean, and it was sitting right there in Huntsville, Alabama, and, the other guys around that area, once they figured out what it was, there was a lot of people kicking themselves, And, yeah, my wife, she loves it. I mean, so that's the reason it's got her name on it, because she loves it so much. I said something about selling some cars, and she's like, this one goes nowhere. Yeah, but these are, if you've never driven one, this is the best put together Fox body, period. I mean, it'll out-handle a Celine all day long. And I know, all of us, I guess, probably own a Celine Fox. But, yeah, these are way above and beyond. Yeah, there you go.
Is this your SAAC?
It is. Yeah.
I like the SAAC.
But, yeah, this is – oh, and the other thing, too, is like Larry Hill. And him looking for a SAAC, I hauled a car for Larry one time. Just to help him out because it was down by my hunting club, and I wouldn't let him pay me for it. So he gifted me an original set of all the decals and everything right after I got this, plate and everything for the intake. Oh yeah, and then finally he sends me a picture where he got his first SAAC. I was like, hey man, are you wanting that stuff back?
All right, all you Kevins, if you guys didn't like that video, something's wrong with you. And now, if you've watched that whole video, you've learned about the SAAC. You know what it is. Good luck finding one. These guys pretty much have the market cornered. There's probably not any more left out there. If there are, buy one quick. Make sure you tune in, hit the subscribe button, and thanks so much for watching Fox Body FX.